Welcome to the Build Exito and URISE Research Symposium. I'm Tom Keller. I'm the principal investigator for both Build Exito and the URISE program, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this event. The Research Symposium is an important milestone for our scholars. You get to share the impressive research that you've been doing over the past year. You gain skills in reporting and sharing your research, and it's great preparation for future conference presentations and maybe publications. So we have several groups with us today. On the Exito side, we have cohort 6 scholars who are just completing summer immersion. So they have been in their RLC placements for a year, and they will be reporting their research from the past year. We also have cohort 7 scholars who are just finishing up their summer induction, which means they're just beginning their RLC placements, and they get a preview of what it will be like next year when they're presenting at the symposium. And finally, we hope that we have many prospective cohort 8 scholars who may have attended the Summer Research Academy and are in the process of applying for Build Exito right now, so they can see more about what the program is all about and the kind of research that students do. So welcome to all of you. On the URISE side, we have cohort 1, our very first URISE scholars who have been in their research placements for the past year, and they're just coming off of an intensive summer research experience. So they will be sharing their findings with us. And we also have cohort 2 scholars in URISE who have just started their research placements this summer. So they've been in their RLCs for just a couple of months, but we asked them to do their presentations as well because we think it's good experience, and they will be sharing with us the research that they intend to do over the coming year. So another group I hope we have with us today. It would be wonderful to see research mentors who have supported and guided our scholars, and we really appreciate the opportunities that they're providing for our scholars, and we hope that you enjoy seeing and supporting your scholars during the symposium. And I want to also acknowledge some scholars that will be concluding the program soon or already have. First of all, Miriam Ibrahim completed with us in August, and Raisha Paris is completing Exito at the end of immersion, and Emily Mize is completing at the end of fall term. So congratulations to all of those scholars. I also want to thank people that are involved in making this all work, putting on this great event. So first of all, Dr. Decatur Foster has done an excellent job with summer immersion this year, supporting the scholars in preparing their presentations and posters. I also want to thank Dr. Shandy Dixon, who supported immersion, but also is responsible for induction this year. Of course, there are many other people involved in organizing an event like this, so I want to especially note Cassandra Ramirez and Sarah Taylor for helping to coordinate everything, and many others who have helped to pull this all together. So we're very excited to be together in person again. And I want to say, finally, we are very excited about our event on Thursday. So again, the symposium will feature research presentations today, Tuesday, and then the first 2 hours on Thursday. But the last hour on Thursday, just before lunch, we're going to have a poster session and a reception with refreshments. And this year we've combined it with our annual kickoff event to start the new year. So we hope you can all be with us to celebrate. And we've invited many guests from around campus so that they can learn more about Build Exito and URISE programs and see the wonderful research that our scholars are doing. So again, we hope to see you all for that. And We hope you're having a great experience in the program, and we're so proud of all that you've accomplished, and we hope you enjoy the symposium. Thank you.
It's kind of weird saying thanks, Tom, to a video, but it was really great that he put that together. And so yeah, let's get on with it. I know you're all excited, a little nervous, but today's a great day. You know, we've had the Build cohort 6 scholars and URISE cohort 1 and 2 trainees all working really hard the past, you know, basically 1.5 to 2 years. I know it talks about saying that, you know, you started this project in the summer, but really you started doing all this research in the beginning of program year 2 when you started in your research lab. So essentially, this is a kind of a culminating experience. You get to talk about the research that you've been doing and really kind of get to show off all the skills that you've learned, not just the oral presentation wise, but when we also have, you know, poster presentations. So today and Thursday we'll have oral presentations, and then as Tom was saying, on Thursday that's going to be poster as well, and then the kickoff. So we hope everybody will stay for the kickoff. In terms of kind of the setup for today, each presenter will have 5 minutes to present, and then there's 5 minutes of Q&A. So if you have questions, please be thoughtful about your questions. Anybody online, please type them into the chat box if you're with us today via Zoom. And then we also understand that there's multiple presentations today. So we want you to see the presentations that you'd like. So if you're an attendee or even a presenter and you want to go see somebody else's, that'd be great. But just make sure that while they're in presenting, do not walk in. That's a little bit distracting. So wait until they're done presenting and maybe go and do the Q&A or when the Q&A is over. So in between the presentations. So you have a question on it? Yeah.
How can people who don't have subjects like the card get into the building?
Oh,
Yeah.
that is a good
Someone
question.
else let me in.
I do not know. They're gonna have to knock on the door and hopefully someone at the front will have to let them in. So we'll go ahead and start then. Well, actually, no, we got 2 more minutes. So let's see what else. We do have microphones all set up in here, so we need to make sure the chatter is a little bit quiet when people are doing their presenting. And then they got in? Okay. Great. And then also just to let you know, we do have one presenter that won't be with us today. So 11:15 will be some time in between there. There's also going to be snacks up at the front. So in between sessions, if you want to get a snack, feel free to go up in front where the check-in is. Okay, well, we can go ahead and start then. So we'll bring up Anya DiCarlo, who's in Dr. Bori K's lab at OHSU, Build Scholar Cohort 6, and then I'll let you talk about your presentation title.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. I hope you all are having a great morning. This presentation is about an ongoing study that is investigating emergency department oral anticoagulation prescribing practices for acute atrial fibrillation. So atrial fibrillation is an irregular heart rhythm, and it's the most commonly diagnosed heart rhythm in clinical practices. It's responsible for 1 million emergency department visits annually, and it greatly increases a patient's risk of stroke. This stroke risk, however, can be reduced in patients with AFib up to 64% with oral anticoagulants, a medicine that helps prevent blood clots by preventing or undoing coagulation, which is the process where your blood forms together and solidifies to form a clot. So there are medicines that exist that can decrease a patient's risk of stroke, but there exists a prescribing gap in these medicines, specifically among emergency department physicians. So the emergency department sees a great number of atrial fibrillation or patients with atrial fibrillation who are at high risk of stroke, but are under prescribing oral anticoagulants, which is a medicine that can prevent strokes in patients with AFib. So in order to address this prescribing gap, we'll be implementing a clinical decision support tool in 3 different hospitals in 3 different steps, and then collect quantitative data on the magnitude of change in oral anticoagulation prescribing practices, and qualitative data evaluating clinician and patient experience with the tool in different levels of integration. So just briefly, there are 3 different levels of the tool integration. The first one is step 0. So that's just retrospective data collection, where we'll be looking at different patients and their inclusion and exclusion criteria, and the tool is not implemented in this step. In step 1, this is where clinicians will receive education about the tool and its location in the electronic healthcare record system. And then step 2, they will receive a best practice alert within the electronic healthcare record system. And within that alert is a link to the tool. And then step 3 is the most integrated form of the tool, where they receive a best practice alert for the tool, and then all the patient's information within the tool. So like if you're filling out a survey, trying to figure out what risk you are, and you had to fill out like your age and like your weight or anything, in this step 3, all the information would be pulled in from your chart and already in the tool. So the results that I'm going to be presenting are pre-implementation results, so step 0. None of the hospitals have the tool in this. This is just like pre-retrospective review of the patients. So on the left chart is just information about the diagnosis, differences in patients with atrial fibrillation among patients who met inclusion criteria. And then importantly on the right, so I discussed how one of the reasons for the study is that there is a prescribing gap in oral anticoagulants. So this chart on the right shows that the majority of providers did not adjust medication for stroke prophylaxis. So that shows that in the sites that are going to be receiving this tool, there also exists a gap in oral anticoagulation prescribing. And then these next 2 charts just kind of show the reasons about whether or not providers are citing reasons. So a majority of them were citing a reason as to why not they were adjusting, but a majority of them were not citing a use of guidelines in their decision making. And then one important thing I just want to note is that these patients, in order to be included in this, have not received treatment for stroke prevention. Okay, so future directions of the study. So the results that I showed you are just for 2 hospitals. And right now we're finishing pre-implementation data of the 3rd hospital. They have a little bit more of an advanced electronic healthcare record system. So it just requires a little more heavy chart abstraction. And then step 1, which is where doctors are receiving education about the tool, that's happening in 2 of the 3 hospitals. And then for my last slide, if I could just impart like 3 main takeaways, is that right now there exists a prescribing gap of oral anticoagulations in the emergency department, and that improvement of atrial fibrillation care can start in the emergency department, and that our overall study is investigating whether or not a clinical decision-making tool can increase the prescribing of oral anticoagulants. And then thank you to so many people. And I can take questions now if anyone has any.
How do they recruit their participants? At the emergency department or?
Yeah, so do you mean patients or? Yeah, so the recruitment of patients is, I believe, done electronically. Like, so we have charts and there are patients who are diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, and then I'll just talk about the charts that I'm doing. So what I do is I look at charts and look at different including and excluding criteria. So it's not like well, right now for the step 0, it's not like a person-to-person recruitment. It's looking at their chart and seeing if they meet inclusion or exclusion. And then in terms of like the qualitative side, interviewing, that's more of a looking at a patient's chart, but I'm not involved in that, but looking at a patient and then proceeding with the necessary steps to reach out to them.
You're also using like electronic health record ways to identify those patients now, so we can send them a message through my chart, and I can also make a phone call for the part that she's talking about, which is the quality of portion.
Thanks. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Was there any other limiting factors in this said exclusion in picking patients? Like, were there things like other medical issues, age, gender, anything else that would exclude patient?
Yes, so the exclusion criteria is, I think, about 8 things, but some of them include things like history of different valvular diseases, history of already receiving oral anticoagulants within a year, different like kidney and severe kidney and liver diseases, like major surgery within 72 hours of the visit. Let's see, like a stroke in the emergency department, being transferred to another facility, being admitted to the hospital. So there is a list of exclusion criteria, and I think those all like aim to address, like help to address maybe why a patient didn't receive medication, to just like, because if someone has severe liver kidney disease, like maybe they're already at higher risk for bleeding, and that's why they aren't already on oral anticoagulants, I think. Yeah. All right, any last question? Oh, hi, sorry.
Yeah, so there's 3 hospitals that you use, yeah, do they all use the same electronic health record system?
No, so 2 of them do, and that is OHSU and Hillsborough Medical Center. They do, and then Adventist Hospital is the 3rd one, and they use a different electronic healthcare record system, and that's the 3rd hospital that we're still doing the retrospective chart review and just finding patients who meet inclusion and exclusion criteria.
So follow-up question, how do you plan to like adapt between the workflows and like advertising and then?
From my understanding, and can you correct me if I'm wrong, I think that there is a way to get the electronic healthcare record system to get the hospital to use it for this study. Can you help me see if that's correct?
You're on the right track.
Okay.
So Adventist is going to be changing over to Epic in March, so it'll all be the same instance of the same EHR system, which is the way they'll homogeneously, hopefully by then, will be the same. Yeah. Which is why Anya's been working so hard on the old system, extracting all the chart records from the Adventist. Sorry, so, yeah.
Are these all local hospitals?
Yeah, they're all in the Portland metropolitan area, yes.
Are you guys only like collecting that information like in this area specifically, or are you guys gonna like do more or expand?
I don't know. I think right now it's just in this area, but for future, I don't know.
It's related to funding. Yeah, that for this study to use the clinical decision support tool, we have to use one instance of the same EHR system to deploy it. So in order to go to another healthcare system, another hospital, every system has a different instance of Epic for the EHR because they're all unique to that hospital system. The way they practice is different. And it can't be deployed the way we want it to be, and it'll cost more every time you go out. So for the initial study, it's smaller, and then hopefully with more funding, we can expand.
Okay, cool. Thank you, everyone. Good luck.
Karen Rowe is in Dr. Amala's Sumyanas lab at OHSU and build cohort 6, and then you can do your presentation.
Thank you so much. Yes, hello, my name is Karen. The title of my project is Centella asiatica extract provides resilience against age-related behavior changes in Drosophila melanogaster. A little bit of background, Centella asiatica is an Eastern medicinal herb that's been used for thousands of years in Ayurvedic medicine and all over Asia. It's been basically used as a nerve tonic and for memory. It's been shown in multiple rodent models that it improves cognition, and the main active components are triterpenes and catharquinic acids. Drosophila melanogaster are the common fruit fly. They're a model organism used a lot by science. Their lifespan is around 60 days. They have a very rapid generation time, and because of this, they're used very easily for genetic studies. So they've been coined the term the Cinderella of genetics. And as they age, they experience locomotive defects, especially after age 6 weeks. So I was thinking, since Centella worked well in the rodent model, would they work well in the fly model? So my hypothesis was, if Centella can reverse the locomotion defects in aged flies, then they will perform a phototaxic assay as well as younger flies. Locomotion is one of the main ways that the flies are really good for that kind of study. So, all right, so what I did is these are my flies that I stored. I stored them in these little vials for 6 weeks. There's about an inch of food on the bottom. Changed them weekly. I began treatments with the Centella asiatica water extract at 4 weeks, and the treatment lasted for 2 weeks. The treatment categories were the Centella water extract, triterpenes, the catharquinic acids, and then a mixture of both, all in the right concentrations as in the original Centella extract. These are all the separate compounds in each of the active components. Here's some pictures of me throughout the process of changing the flies and the treatment of them. How I prepared them for their phototaxis experiment was I used CO2 to knock them out and then put them onto the diffuser tray there underneath the microscope that was also diffusing CO2. It puts them right to sleep, and I was able to separate them by sex, and they were already in the treatment categories in the files. Then I stored them on their side for about 4 hours because it takes that long for them to come back after the being knocked out by the CO2. So after that, I used the phototax assay, and I brought the little apparatus here. So basically, it tests them by the startle response. What I did is I moved it over, put all the flies in this left one, shut it, give it a little shake, laid it down flat, as you can see with the light at the top, and I set a timer. The flies then have 6 seconds to make their way from the bottom up to there. After that, after 6 seconds, I shut it, move it over to the sides, and they move over one vial, give another shake, lay it back down, and repeat that for a total of 6 times. And here is my data after the full year. On the left is the Centella water extract and the water controls, and on the right are the ethanol extracts and the ethanol controls. Please note that the high population rate, but so I wanted to explain the y-axis. How it is the average percentage that transition towards the light. As you can see, there is quite the difference in both the controls and the treatments. Basically, they were completing this as well as flies at 2 weeks. So the treatment really helped them gather their composure and move towards the light. There seemed to be a ceiling effect at the top there. We're not quite sure why. It must be a certain amount, and then it just stops helping after a certain point. So further research, what I'm doing now is I'm testing each of the compounds separately, but there might not be 1 or 2 that are beneficial. It might be a mixture of the interactions between them all. There's just a lot of different things that we can do. This is all the different separate compounds that I'm testing. This is my very preliminary data. Please note, again, the very low population size. Studies like this really depend on the population size. It makes a big difference, excuse me. And the data is all over the place. These are the ethanol controls, males and females. It's all over the place. But my data, my prior data was like this up until after a year of getting studies. So I wanted to say a big thank you to the OSHU labs and Dr. Kreshmar and Dr. Samaniant, and a big thank you to Build Exito for helping me make my dreams come true. Working at this lab with neuroscience and alternative medicine is literally my dream come true. So I'm very, very happy to be part of this team. Here are my references. All of these were out of my lab that I'm working in. So there's a lot of great stuff going on there. These are just a couple other little fun pictures of me working in the hood, my flies and sleepy flies. And with that, I'm more than happy to take questions.
Why was ethanol used as the control?
It's we tried it with water, but the extracts weren't dissolving; they were precipitating. So we had to use the centella doesn't dissolve in ethanol, so the centella had to be in a water extract. But the separate compounds, they had to be in ethanol. Is the way they dissolve. Thank you so much.
Our next presenter is Kathleen Lackaner-Lau. And she's in Dr. McGregor's lab at OHSC. And I'll hand it over.
Hello and good morning. My name is Kathleen Lackaner-Lau, and I have been working under Dr. Justina McGregor's lab. And today I will be presenting our project on the validation of an automated case definition for hospital Clostridioides difficile infection. So what is the Clostridioides difficile infection? Well, it was previously known as Clostridium difficile, and it is a gram-positive anaerobic bacteria that causes the C. diff infection, also known as CDI. It is the leading cause of healthcare-associated infections and is a substantial threat to public health globally. The bacterial spores are resistant to heat and numerous disinfectants, contributing the spread of CDI in the healthcare setting. The infection starts with symptoms of diarrhea, and it can progress to life-threatening inflammation of the colon. A person is 7 to 10 times likely to obtain CDI while taking antibiotics and the month after. And the consumption of antibiotics help defend the body from bacterial inflammation from bacterial infection by killing the unwanted germs, but by doing so, it can also alter the normal flora of the body that protects against harmful infections. Antibiotic use is the primary modifiable risk factor for the development of CDI, and this is because it disrupts the gut biome, and other risk factors are associated with likelihood of CDI, such as the increased age, female sex, admission in a long-term acute care facility, immunosuppression, length of stay in a hospital, and exposure to other drugs like proton pump inhibitors. So why are we even doing this study? Well, the prevention research of CDI is important for hospitalized patients. The retrospective studies depend on accurate methods to identify infections, but there are also challenges in healthcare associated CDI, which is poor documentation in EHRs, and it can also be overcoded. This project has two objectives. In phase 1, we are optimizing the case definition by reviewing samples that fully, partially, and don't meet components of the case definition. In phase 2, we will measure the performance of the case definition by performing chart reviews on sampled measure using sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy. Moving on to the methods of this project. This is a cross-sectional validation study. Our study design includes an inclusion criteria of 18 years or older, and OHSU inpatient encounters, which is greater than or equal to 48 hours length of stay between 2018 and 2019. Our preliminary case definition includes an ICD-10 SIEM code for non-recurrent CDI or displaced as positive, a CDI-PCR test with a prescribed antibiotic such as metronidazole, oral vancomycin, and fidaxomicin, and a PCR sample collected greater than or equal to 48 hours after admission to guarantee that the encounter was during hospitalization. REDCap is a web-based application used for data collection, and EPIC is an electronic health record application used in validating present components and verifying symptomatic disease as recorded in the notes section of an EHR. In phase 1, revisions are being informed into the case definition. In phase 2, we will evaluate the sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy of the final definition. For analysis, we are using sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy. Sensitivity is calculated by the true positive divided by the true positive and false negative, while specificity is calculated by the true negative divided by the true false positive and true negative, and accuracy is calculated by the number of people who are correctly classified by the case definition divided by the total number of people. In our preliminary results, we have a total sample size of 250 in our current phase, and as of today, we have reviewed 55 over 250 records. We have 11% who tested positive for CDI, 36% who tested negative for CDI, and 53% who did not have a CDI test. 15% of the population had a non-recurrent ICD-10 code. 0% had a recurrent ICD-10 code. We have 2% of the population who had both non-recurrent and recurrent ICD-10 code, and 84% of the population had no ICD-10 codes for C. difficile. 5% of the population received metronidazole, while 31% received oral and rectal vancomycin. And this type of drug is most commonly used to treat C. diff. 0% has received fidaxomicin, and that is because fidaxomicin is really expensive and is used more on the severe cases of CDI. And 64% of the population had no treatment or received other indications. And an example for that is some patients received metronidazole, but then that wasn't included with the metronidazole antibiotic because it was used to treat a different type of infection. 16% of the population is case definition positive, while 84% is case definition negative. Moving on to our preliminary analysis for sensitivity, specificity, and accuracy, I just want to state that this is again a preliminary analysis and that a lot of these numbers are bound to change. This analysis was included for the purpose of my learning and to give everyone an overview of how our analysis might be conducted in the future. So for sensitivity, it is the probability that a person has tested positive, given that they did have a CDI test, which is 53%. Specificity is the probability that someone tested negative, given that they did not have a CDI test, which is 100%. And accuracy is the probability that someone is correctly classified divided by the total number of people, which is 85%. We are currently in the process of completing chart review for phase 1. The potential revisions to the case definition may happen or it may also not be revised. The data analysis and statistical analysis is ongoing. Preliminary results show high sensitivity and poor specificity, and that is because only 1/3 of the charts have been reviewed. And accuracy is high because the incidence of CDI is low. The future direction of this study would be to explore revisions to the case definition by increasing accuracy. And this would be done by reclassifying by reclassifying the people who meet partial definitions in this table. And in doing so, we would also have to reweight the calculations because the samples of this project are weighted. I would like to thank NIH Build Excedo, OHSU RedCap. Special thanks to Dr. McGregor and Michael, and to the Build Excedo staff and advisor. And I am now open for questions.
You mentioned a couple of specific antibiotics that you're testing after. How were those chosen?
Those were chosen because those are like usually the specific types of antibiotics used to treat C. difficile. So usually if you look in a hospital base, that's like the main 3 antibiotics used to treat C. difficile.
I saw one of your slides that said like the, how many people were treated, how many people got medicine, but not, like, you had quite a high percentage that tested positive, but a very low percentage that were treated, like, I mean, the ones that didn't get any treatment was really high. So were they just not that bad? They were just like, were they not?
They did not, the reason why the percentage of no treatment was high versus the people who were treated was because some of them did not have a CDI test, so we're not exactly sure if they tested positive, but then that's the purpose of this study, is to be able to like dissect the note section, because when physicians record their notes, it can be very different from what like is said or is recorded in the EHR. So usually what we like to do is we're looking at the notes section so that we can see more explanation onto the like what specific type of like C. diff they have, because sometimes they can test negative or they don't have a test at all. But then when we look at the notes section, it shows that they have a recurrent CDI or they got C. diff from a previous encounter.
What is something that you found interesting about this study?
Something that I found interesting was that it's just like you think that antibiotics is used to like fix a disease or sickness, but then it can also like cause harm to a patient or to like our system. So that is something that I found most interesting.
Is the bacterium that causes the C. diff, is it rather common, like common on stuff?
Yes, so that one you can also, where our study is focused on hospitalized CDI, but then you can also get CDI in the community base. So it is like common. Usually it can be, we don't think that we don't know it's there, but then it can be there because, you know, we have symptoms like diarrhea, like abdominal pain, stuff like that. So.
I have another quick question. So is the C. diff infections, are the majority of them end up in hospitalizations, or is like the majority of them work it out on their own and then just few have to come in and get hospitalized?
I'm not actually sure.
Yeah, it's like a little like overboard.
I don't really have like the answer to that.
It used to be that they thought most cases occurred in hospitalized patients because those patients got more of the gut disrupting antibiotic exposures. However, you know, people in the community tend to get tested less, right? So now there is some thought that the community rate is higher than we think it is, but we don't really have a good estimate.
Thank you.
Buddy. Next up, we have Liliana Paniagua in Dr. Willie Horner Johnson's lab, and Yuli is cohort 6.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Yuli, and this is my project is Pregnancy Decisions app. So we don't use, but I guess for this project specifically, we're not going to use like super like scientific words and stuff because we're working with people with disabilities. So our main goal is to create a decision support tool so that women with developmental disabilities that affect cognition can feel comfortable using in order to make that decision of motherhood much easier. So by developmental disabilities that affect cognition, I mean like learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, ADHD, autism. There are currently no resources available for these women so that they can make informed evidence-based decisions to like attempt or prevent a pregnancy. So and by preventing pregnancy, I mean like contraception. So like the pill or an IUD. Pregnancies among women with DDC are usually left unplanned, which is likely to cause significant birth outcomes like low birth weight or preterm birth. Low birth weight means that babies would just be, or the fetus would be born like at a regularly like low weight compared to just like a regular birth. And then preterm birth just means that they're going to be born earlier than they scheduled. We think that it's important to address we think that this is important to address for the purpose of improving maternal and child health outcomes. We believe that women with disabilities should feel included and supported in this decision. So our goals. Existing research shows that women with DDC are often discouraged for considering pregnancy or motherhood. That's why it's essential to address. A lot of these women go into like clinics and stuff, and like a lot of doctors actually, they'll put them down and be like, well, are you sure you want to do this? Like, are you sure you want to get pregnant? They question them a lot. And it's unfair because like, you know, like I'm sure they put some thought into it, but like a lot of them are like being like turned away from that opportunity. So this project will be accomplished through conducting qualitative interviews, a large scale survey, and creating multiple drafts of the app. A community advisory board will present through the project, will be present through the project to help make sure the information and documents are easy to understand and follow. So what we do is like we write out like a bunch of like things that we want to like present to the people who we're interviewing and stuff like that, or we're doing surveys for, and we all type that down, and then we make sure it's like at a 5th grade reading level, and then we present it to the people to the community advisory board, CAB. And then they also just like double check and then make sure that it's a lot easier to understand. So we hope to create this app to be able to improve, like I said, child and maternal health outcomes, since women with DDC usually have a very high negative birth outcomes due to the unplanned pregnancies. So we're going to be doing this by, we're going to be asking a bunch of services and centers such as Oregon Office of Developmental Disability, Hawaii Developmental Disability, the ARC of South Carolina, and other programs just to be able to recruit about 30 women for this interview. And these interviews are going to last for about an hour, and we're going to ask like questions such as like, what do you think about pregnancy? Or like, have you ever thought about pregnancy? Like, do you know what contraception is? Have you thought about like getting pregnant in the next 5 years? We'll also include questions about the app, such as like, what are your favorite features on like the app that you use like the most? Like, what don't you like about the app, you know, certain apps? So the goal is to have a spectrum of different women with DDC so that they have a range in reproductive age, racial and ethnic diversity, and rural versus urban living. Survey, the next step after the interview will be a survey to learn about the most important things to include in the app. So this is what we are thinking of, like what the app will kind of look like. So we're gonna do like a little welcome, and then we're gonna mention like the goal of the app. So like, oh, we're here to like help you. This app is to like help you be able to like decide like whether you want to get pregnant or not, or like what contraception you should use. So after the goal of the app, we're gonna do like some eligibility checks. So like any list of factors, just like, are you pregnant? Are you not pregnant? Stuff like that. If not eligible, then I think we're gonna do like a message to send to like the clinician about like information that you have checked about the eligibility, and then that way will make it easier to present to the clinician so that like they can help like make that decision together. And if eligible, considering pregnancy, the next step is to ask if you consider pregnancy the next year. If yes, we'll help explore hopes, concerns, and then if no, we're gonna help you or help them with contraception exploration. And then again, like if yes, we're gonna like also again like prepare like a report so you can like present to the clinician. So it's critical for people with EDC to have access and for them to understand their access to reproductive knowledge in order to make these important decisions. Pregnancy planning is essential in order to lessen like birth outcomes. Like I said previously, not only is this essential for the fetus, but it's equally as important for the mother's mental and physical health. We hope to give every woman a chance to make the best possible decision for themselves. And in the future, we plan to test the app and able to incorporate it in any healthcare setting. So yeah, once the app is completed. And then just reference the acknowledgements and then just any questions. Yeah.
My question is more of a comment.
Yeah.
You know, that's an amazing idea, and I really hope that it's not just limited to the, you know, the young women with disabilities. Like hopefully it could be like offered, you know, like when anybody young comes out, oh, any teenage girl, that you can get all this information about what kind of contraception, you know, like privately, you're not like, it seems like you can help so many people that, yeah, it's a great idea.
I'm like the biggest fan of this. I work in a similar field of sex education, and so like this is a game changer. I would say if I've worked with disabilities before, and let's say socioeconomic, one of the things that men deal with is literacy. So I would say that offering verbal information to your app for people who have literacy issues, it's a big hidden statistic because like our society is built around ready. So you can get away with like using your credit card and using your things and using your bank information. People who have literacy issues and disabilities, they hide really well. And so I would assume that there is a lot of shame and some issues around that, especially with women. So just having that as an option is going to make demographic of the disabilities. But yeah, having it be a resource and accessible for young girls or just information, like it's a huge benefit to our community. And so
Yes.
Well, I just had a question. Is this app only going to be in English, or will they have it?
No, they're gonna definitely have it in all the like different languages. Yeah, like so like we're gonna like be able to like check and like do different languages, especially like in like this community now, like where it's like a lot of like Spanish oriented and stuff. But we're definitely gonna like be able to like incorporate it because it's an app. We can easily switch the language and stuff around. Yes. Oh yeah.
Can I ask you questions? Is this app only gonna be in Oregon?
No.
And then second question, like, what was the decision-making process in like potentially having the information be sent to a clinician? Because I just wonder, like, could that be like an option, like yes or no versus?
Yeah. It's just like I think what they're gonna do is just like we're gonna like have like a report, and I think you could like either send it to your clinician or just like keep it for yourself. Yeah, you're gonna have like a bunch of options and like like privacy and stuff. Yeah.
You mentioned, I don't know if you've done any of the interviews yet, you mentioned the interviews would be about an hour, I think. Do you think that population can sit through that and give you their focus for that one?
Yeah, so like I think we're gonna stay on like one-on-one and stuff, or we are going to stay one, we're gonna record it and as well, and we're just gonna take our time with them and stuff. We managed to like cut the questions down to like about like 6 to 8 questions. And we're just gonna want to like them to tell us like their story and their experience around that and stuff. I think that's the main takeaway.
Isn't there a shame that can happen from people, and I can understand that. Like, so what other, is there a way to prevent like doctors from basically creating these types of uncomfortable circumstances? Like, and I feel like there should already be, but I know that there is insensitivity around this specific subject.
That's so hard to tell because I work in a hospital, I work in the emergency department, and like to tell you that there are doctors who will like shame like patients for like the reasons that they come in, it's like crazy, like the amount of people. So like, yeah, I know. So like, they're like, oh, like it's just like so like just crazy to me. How like I can just walk in there and they're gonna be like, I didn't want to deliver a fucking baby today. I'm like, sorry, I got the F-bomb. I didn't, but that was an example, Sorry.
So definitely you just need to keep sensitivity around these types of things. Like,
Yeah, it's just hard, yeah, I mean.
Around it,
There's gonna be an educational component to it.
And the reason I ask is because my wife and I, my wife's pregnant right now, and when we had initially started the process, we went to do an informational session, and we learned so much about our own bodies that we didn't know.
No, yeah.
We were like, oh my God. And so, is there any educational?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We're gonna have like a bunch of like definitions, a lot of simple definitions too, like easy to read, easy to follow, and then we're gonna have like charts about like the uterus and like what pregnancy is and like what happens. And yeah, like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you guys.
All right. Next up is Sebastian Benitez, and he is in Dr. Walter Riel's lab at PSU.
Hello, my name is Sebastian, and I am presenting part of my experiment, the early part, which is purification and expression of proteins. I just press the button and didn't need to. Dermatogam erythema, and the proteins specifically are the TSA B, C2, D, and E proteins. So there are 4 different proteins. This is part of a larger experiment, and the goal of this section is to grow cells and modify them so I can have an overexpression, a lot of a certain type of protein that I need to work with. In each cell, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different proteins, apparatus, and it's important to get just what I need out of them. So the purpose is to express them, grow them in a certain way, then break them open, and then purify all the other components out of it to isolate what I need. This is the beginning of the process. It starts with transformation. So I have the cells I'm using, which are E. coli, and I need to make sure that nothing else other than those cells are grown in my cultures. So I pick an antibiotic that strain is immune to. And some of them it's kanamycin, some of them it's ampicillin. So it kills everything around it and isolates those cells. And I put it in a media to grow overnight. And the next day, Sorry, I'm completely blank here. Then the next day, when it's expressed, then I'll start purifying them, then I'll start working on lysing them, getting them to a place where they're ready to burst in a solution, a buffer, a lysis solution. And through that and sonicating using ultra high frequencies to burst it open and some centrifuging, I separate all the components and the dead cell bodies from the proteins. And then I start purifying. The first step in purifying is using an affinity column. It is a plastic column with nickel beads, positive charged nickel beads in them. It is first washed, then a binding buffer is ran through it to make sure that the proteins that I want stick to the beads inside of it. And then it's washed one more time to make sure that everything else that shouldn't be stuck in there will come out. And then finally, in a separate step, it is a elution buffer is used to unstick all the proteins and isolate them into its own collection. Then what I isolate from there is then run through a FPLC, which is a size exclusion column. What it does is takes a concentrated amount of protein that I have, it's injected, and it runs through another column which will then separate more of the unnecessary elements and hanging on proteins I don't want, and it'll collect it in small fractions in a small carousel with small collection tubes. And at the same time, to know where my protein is coming out, there is chromatography, a light chromatography graph that is going on. And I look at that chromatography graph to see where I look for peaks in the UV that's being read. And I use those, the small fractions are collected from that to find my protein, combine whatever fractions it comes out in, and I have a more purified product. So this is the chromatography that is used for the FPLC. What you see here is not my protein, it's a little hanger on, but this is where my main protein is. And I collect the samples that happen in between there to use as my concentrated protein. And to further check it, to make sure that I have actually isolated my protein, I run an electrophoresis gel. I hand make the gels. This is what happens during the whole expression purification process. I've collected aliquots of the crude sample after it's been expressed. And every step during the purification process, I save about a milliliter, or actually 0.2 microliters, and see where my protein may be. This represents all the stuff that happens, all the hangers on, all the contaminations in my protein before. So as it moves from left to right, you can see that it becomes less, less, and less. And this is from the FPLC. So this is my more purified product. I tested several fractions that came from there. And because these blobs are the biggest, that's how I know that my protein is somewhere that's going to be here more frequently. And it's also going by size. This is a ladder. So my protein for this example is coming out around 60 kilodaltons. So I know where my protein is. And I'll use that to mix them together, then concentrate a little bit further just by centrifuging, mix it with a 70% glycerol and save it in a -80-degree freezer for future use. And this is my literature citations and acknowledgements. I would like to give a special thanks to my lab mates that have come here to watch my presentation and make me even more nervous. Eric, Samantha, and Andrew, they're fantastic. Any questions?
It looks like you learned a lot of great lab methods that I'm sure will be helpful in the future. I'm curious though, why are you interested in those specific proteins?
Those proteins are going to be used for the larger experiment. It's finding the specificity of T6A in tRNA modification. So for that part of the experiment, it's the best ones to use for cultivating tRNA. I may have not answered that fully, Eric.
I guess to answer it more specifically, that specific tRNA modification is necessary for basically anything. So we're curious about just how good those proteins are actually at making that modification.
Yes, Anya?
What is you mentioned a little bit about like storing the proteins, but briefly, like what is the future direction for you in this experiment?
Oh, so it's going to be used in assays, radiochemical assays. Yes, Aaron?
So it sounds like an incredibly complex process to figure out, just kind of purify this protein. As you were figuring this out, sort of where did you start? To how do I do this? And what was the biggest barrier that you had?
I started at 0, and it took a lot of figuring out how to keep everything from being contaminated, how to read samples and chromatography, and to be patient. There's a quote from my lab mate Eric that I like, and it's "Science is rushing to wait." And I have had to learn a lot of patience over the last year. And it hasn't been until the last couple of months that I feel comfortable in expressing and purifying proteins. I've had a lot of failures. I've lost protein in the purification process. I've had it precipitate out. And I've had to stop and start over. My lab notebook is a lot of starts and stops. And also it's forced me to keep better notes. So I have more data for every process I do, and I can more isolate where I make my mistakes. So it's definitely been a good learning process.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
All right, everybody, welcome. We have our last presentation for today. I'm excited to introduce Sammy Romolar, who's also in quick cohort 6, and then in Dr. Carlin Wiggins-Adams, or Adams-Wiggins lab here at PSU.
So good morning, I'm Sammy Romolar, and today I'll be presenting to you my research on using interview and observational data to understand group interactions in microgenetic studies. So the purpose of my study was to present study explorers how using individual interview transcripts and video recorded transcripts of student-led activities may help with the development of microgenetic studies. The first question I asked was, how does the video recorded observation transcript compare to what was said during individual interview transcripts of group F? The second question I asked was, is it a good idea to use just interviews? Is it a good idea to use just videos? Would using both be better? Every time we study human development, we can look at it in different levels. We usually look at the lifespan. What I'm doing takes it down to a smaller scale, macrogenesis. Microgenetic studies aim to observe learning processes as they occur and do so in such a way as to permit strong inferences about learning processes. It is ideally suited to address questions of what causes conceptual change. So what I'm doing focuses on group work of a certain group, group F. So now I will explain why group work is important in my study. It allows students to use their critical thinking skills, deductive reasoning, communication skills, and refines understanding through discussion and explanation. So I use qualitative microgenetic case study of 4 students, 3 male, 1 female. I use qualitative coding using 2 data sources. The first one being video recorded observation transcript. It was a 16-minute and 21-second video of students working together, but instead of just looking at the video, I had actually just used the transcript instead, just so that makes a little bit more sense. And so the second I used was the transcripts of end of the semester interviews with the 4 students of group F. The interviews were used to support the observations made while reading the video recorded observation transcript of group F. So the first student, Ty, was interviewed. When he was interviewed, he had said that they focused most of their attention on some people, only taking answers from some members and not the other members. And so when I made my observation after reading their individual interview transcripts, I saw that what he had said in the individual interview was supported by what he had said and what his group mates had done in the video I'm very nervous. So it was supported by what was said during the video that I had seen in the transcript. So the second student, Paul, when he was interviewed, he had said that the group discussed amongst themselves in order to decide on what answer they want to put down. This is supported as the quotes given here show all 4 members of Group F discussing during the student-led group activity. So the third student, Shanice, when she was interviewed, she had said that she felt outvoted and left out a few times. She also says that she was often confused and had to ask Ty and the others what they were doing so that she'd get on track. So this is also supported because it shows here at the bottom that Javon softly spoke to Shanice, trying to help her get on track with what she had not understood in the group assignment. And then the fourth student, Javon, when he was interviewed, he said that he found his group was very cooperative. He said that his other members were helping him out. I personally thought that this was unsupported and contradicting because in the 16-minute long video transcript, it showed that a lot of times they were talking over each other rather than trying to cooperate with each other. And so this quotes here show that they constantly were arguing with each other. Discussions and limitations. The findings of this project highlights the importance of triangulating data. Qualitative researchers often advocate using triangulation as it gives different perspectives needed in order to decide what kind of approach a researcher would take when doing studies on microgenesis. When compared to the individual interview transcripts, the video recorded transcripts are able to support the responses given by each individual student from Group F. So I found that using both videos and transcripts of individual interviews and student-led group activities are important because it gives better insight to the interactions made between each student, the tones they take, and their body language. I was limited to only one video recorded observation transcript, and this was a semester-long study. So I felt that it would be best to look at more than just one transcript of the videos rather than just looking at one transcript. And I was limited to the sample of students. This was a whole classroom of middle school students, and I only had Group F that consisted of 4. These are my acknowledgements, and I'm taking questions.
What is triangulation?
So triangulation, sorry, one second. So.
It's okay.
So triangulation is. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. You can move on. It's okay. It's okay.
I will get back to you. Yes.
Has this research made you rethink of your own role in your projects?
So rather than making me rethink of the role I have in group project, it thinks about the role I usually hold in group projects, because what I saw while reading the transcripts or what I had read was that there was an established leader. And so I thought that maybe I leaned more towards the listener That makes sense. Sorry, did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's.
Sorry. Yes, sir.
You're doing amazing, nice work. And this is really interesting, it's really fun, because I'm in these lab meetings a lot with you, but I don't really know what you're working on when we're not all just checking in. So, I'm curious what you liked the most about doing this project.
I really liked reading the transcripts of the individual interviews because I got to see I got a feel of how each student was. And so there was a little drama between some students, specifically 2 students, and I couldn't stop myself from laughing while reading it. And so when I had gone to the next student's transcript, I was like, oh my gosh, these are middle school students. What business do they have thinking these things?
Yeah.
That was probably what kept me going.
Yeah.
So they're teenagers? How old were they?
Yes, they were in 7th grade.
Yeah, having worked alongside, like watching these videos and those transcriptions, like I also experienced like those moments that it's like funny, but like, do you think it was also challenging in analyzing the transcript without viewing the video? Because there's a lot of like body language involved, and there's group work.
I did think it was a bit hard because there were times where I got the names wrong. So when I originally got the transcripts, I wasn't given their real names. I was given pseudonyms. So I had to get used to the new names while reading the video transcripts. And it was confusing without the videos because I think with the videos, at least I'd know, oh, this individual's wearing a red shirt or this individual's wearing a blue shirt. But it just got confusing at times. Yes?
So was microgenetics like a task that the group was working on while they were case study?
So it was not the task that they were working on. So they were just given a science project to work on for the semester. And microgenetics is more of the study on them interacting with one another.
Could I ask what were the genetics that were analyzed in this?
So
I can just, yeah, if you want. So microgenetic methods is a qualitative methodological approach that's about observing moment by moment unfolding interactions. So it doesn't have anything to do with those kinds of genetics. It's more the genesis and the that's just, I mean, it is kind of a confusing term. It sounds very natural sciences, I think. But some people call it just observation.
Social science.
Any more questions? Thank you.